First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. That is a live shot looking there at Mount St. Helens over downtown Portland. It's pretty nice looking outside, and I got to say, after all of the rain that we've had, I appreciate that myself personally. Hello. Welcome to the show. We are live streaming here every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific, and then going throughout the day, we cover all kinds of things, whether it's breaking news or events, or sometimes things that you should know, especially with the holidays coming up, or maybe just in general all the time. As you can see right there in the lower third, today we're talking to the Northwest ADA Center about tips to make sure that everybody feels comfortable around the holidays. I mean, we have everybody getting together, depending who it is, friends, family, but just general rules to think about, things to make sure that everyone is having a good time and being taken care of. And that's why right now we are joined by Katie Borden, the director of the Northwest ADA Center, to talk about this and more. First off, Katie, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Greg. I'm happy to be here.
For a little bit of education for everyone, could you maybe talk to us about the Northwest ADA Center and just what that is?
Sure. So we're part of a national network of ADA centers. There's 10 regional centers, and we're funded to answer questions about the Americans with Disabilities Act. We're information resources, and we can do trainings for organizations or companies about the Americans with Disabilities Act. We have a website where we share information about how to comply with the law. We're really here to help people understand this law and how it impacts their lives.
And that's important for everybody, whether it's somebody who may be affected no matter how you look at it. Just
Right.
all of us, I think it's important to be aware of, because we all know somebody or are somebody who is affected by this. And so looking at it from that standpoint, for you being there to help educate and help people, know what to do, I guess to start off, we'll go with the holiday celebration side of things. Like, what are some of the important things that people should really be aware of as we head into the holidays?
Great question. So I think the first thing is to keep in mind how diverse people with disabilities are. We often say that, all of us, everyone, will eventually develop a disability. It's just part of our lives as humans. And so under the ADA, this group, it includes people who, use wheelchairs, people who are deaf or hard of hearing, also people with autism or chronic illnesses. And so just when you're planning an event in general, to be thinking about how there are so many different ways that people move through the world or process information or maybe have dietary restrictions. So really thinking about people are very diverse and unique, and we can do a lot of things to help people feel comfortable and accommodated.
Things that are I know that's something that I always try to think of too, is maybe seen or unseen, but there are disabilities. I think that's a really good point, that we'll all have that at some point.
Right. And so when we're planning for events, one of the most important places to start is thinking about the physical location or the virtual location. Can people show up and participate? Is there an accessible parking space or an accessible route into the event space, a door that's accessible? So thinking about kind of the basics of how do we make a building accessible to people who move through the world using a wheelchair or other mobility devices. So that's kind of a key place to start. Just where are you going to hold this event? And can you pick a place where as many people as possible can attend?
Something to look at just ahead of time before you maybe pick a place. Now, looking at it, say if somebody's having something at their house and they don't have an existing ramp or an easily accessible way to get in, they have stairs. What are some good suggestions that you would have to try to get around that?
So the first thing is I'd want to share with people that, the ADA, it doesn't apply to every aspect of our lives. So it wouldn't govern a private party that you're having at your house, but we can still use it as kind of a guideline or a set of standards to help make events accessible, even when they're private at home. Um, and so really, if you're thinking about inviting someone to your house and you've got steps up to your house, one thing to consider is, could you hold it in a public space that was accessible? Or is there another part of your house where you could make a temporary ramp? Um, Could also ask, it's really important to ask the person with the disability who you're inviting, what would make them most comfortable? What would make this more accessible for them? Um, People with disabilities kind of become creative problem solvers as they go through the world figuring these things out. So I'd really encourage people to ask, what can I do to help a friend or a family member get into my house? What would they want me to do?
What's the best way to approach that as far as communicating to someone and asking something without, trying to be too intrusive, but to asking in order to help them better accommodate for the situation?
So I think just being proactive, right? Doing this ahead of time as you're planning. And then one kind of nice phrase is to ask if people have any access needs, right? Do you have any access needs that I should know about when I'm planning this event? That's sort of I think, a friendly way of talking about this subject. And then most people with disabilities, they want to share information about how to make spaces more inclusive. And so I'd encourage people not to be afraid to ask about, do you need an accommodation? Is this space accessible to you? What are your access needs? Those are all great questions that people could ask.
I think that's great advice right there. Just even those questions that you just brought up to make sure that you're being sensitive in asking, but also communicating because, like you said, it's going to be better for everybody in that way. So going from there, what are some other major things you think that people should know about?
So if you're hosting an event, I think it's important to make sure that people know they can ask for an accommodation. So even if it's a casual event among friends or if it's a public event, having a place where people can write in, I need an accommodation such as bringing a support person with me, or I'm going to need to bring my service animal with me. So having a space where people can share that information before the event is really important. And similarly for effective communication. So having a space where people can ask, I might need an ASL interpreter to be at this event for me. Or it would be great if we could have captions enabled in this virtual meeting we're gonna, where we'll do a holiday party at work. So making space for people to ask for accommodations ahead of time is a good
That's
idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like a lot of it comes down to communicating and just really making yourself accessible as far as understanding what some of those needs are, but also asking, just communicating and asking people.
Yeah, it's tough because you've probably heard, Greg, right, that you've met one person with autism, and that means you've met one person with autism. And the Americans with Disabilities Act has that same sort of framework that each person with a disability is an individual with different needs. And so it comes back to asking people, what do you need for this event to be accessible? While keeping in mind that in general, let's think about the space. Can people show up? And can people ask for things to be done differently ahead of time if that's what they need?
I know one of the other things too that you have there at the Northwest ADA Center are different technical training and resources available. Can you speak to those just a little bit about what's available for people to go take advantage of from Northwest ADA?
Yeah, so anyone can call us over a hotline and ask any questions about planning an accessible event or anything else about the ADA. We also do trainings on kind of employment accommodations or effective communication, healthcare, how to make healthcare more accessible. And those, can be free of charge, reasonably priced. And as part of the national network of ADA centers, there are many, many online kind of on-demand trainings that people can also take for free.
What are some of the most sought after resources from Northwest ADA?
Good question. Service animals. We always get questions about service animals. How do I know what a service animal is? What are my responsibilities? And so we do trainings on that often. We also do a lot of work around employment and how to make jobs more accessible to people with different kinds of disabilities.
That's great. I mean, and so this is really for anyone out there, for whether it's a business owner or for an individual just looking for more information, can go to Northwest ADA.
Yeah, so we are a neutral entity. We don't enforce the ADA. We're really here to answer questions. anyone can ask us anything about the ADA. Is free and confidential.
Any other main tips that you would have for people as we approach the, whether it's the holidays or whatever it may be? Are there any other big tips that you would have for people when it comes to celebrating and making sure that everything's inclusive?
I think keeping in mind that people with disabilities, we are so diverse and unique. And so just being open to people, we move and think and communicate in different ways. And that's part of being human. And it's kind of exciting. So I'd encourage people to be open to all those differences that, is part of being a human being.
Absolutely. Everybody's unique and everybody's got their own situation. So from what I'm taking away, there's a lot of resources to go to and communicating.
Yeah,
Communication and openness and accessibility really is. It seems to be a big thing that could overcome a lot of the obstacles.
I think so.
Well, anything else that you think people should know?
No, just to reach out to us if they have any questions. We're here to help.
Fantastic. Well, Katie, thank you very much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it and your input and knowledge. And, hopefully this is helpful for everybody out there as well. And now, if they didn't know, they know they have a resource and a place to go to for any of these questions. Thank you very much for being here on Fox 12 Now.
Yeah, thank you, Greg.
And for all of you joining, thanks for being a part of the show. Appreciate that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to be talking to the Oregon Air National Guard. You may have noticed, you may not have yet, but you probably will over the coming next couple of days, because the Oregon Air National Guard is conducting night flights over Portland and the Northwest, some training missions. We're going to talk to an actual F-15 fighter pilot about that, about what they're doing, about what the training is, and everything associated with it. So that's coming up at 1:30 p.m. So you can join us back wherever you're watching right then. So thanks for tuning in. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.